Hi there. Welcome to Apple World. From official undertaking bits of hearsay to wearing a potato sack and making it hot. Marilyn Monroe was a mainstream society peculiarity and impact the famous entertainer and vocalist passed on in 1962, yet at the same time stays a symbol 60 years. After the fact that she's a substantial perspective with regards to form excellence and the redefinition of being a sex image, her life was spectacular and loaded up with many title-making episodes, yet it was likewise loud by misfortune. You will have a hard time believing how terrible things got at one point in the star's life. Ensure you stay close by to find out, in light of the fact that we have every one of the subtleties in Marilyn Monroe's lamentable history. Marilyn Monroe is a face that is unmistakable from one side of the planet to the other. Yet past that, she was the motivation for additional things than she's credited for, and that incorporates the early progress of Hugh Hefner's Playboy magazine. However, before the beauty of Hollywood turned into a star, she battled with some serious life challenges. Genuine name: Norma Jean Mortensen Monroe was brought into the world on June 1, 1926, in California, yet life had given her a few intense cards before she was even conceived of her mom, Gladys Doe Puncher. Monroe had two exes, but it was guaranteed that a colleague at Combined Studios had fathered a youthful Marilyn. The unclear character of her dad was just the first hindrance that Marilyn Monroe would need to confront. Her mom experienced some psychological medical issues, which some accepted to have been genetic and passed down to Marilyn, and her mom's unsound emotional wellness condition brought about the fairly rough youth that Marilyn experienced. Gladys' pastry specialist experienced schizophrenia, which made her frequently be neurotic, and at just 14 days old, Marilyn was dropped off at the home of temporary parents Ida and Wayne Bolander, when Marilyn was 7, and rejoined with her mom the passing of her stepbrother. 13-year-old Jackie turned into a defining moment for what was generally a steady youth for the little kid. Her mom lost her employment, and her granddad hung himself, and Marilyn's life was disentangled, and such started the long and tiring pattern of homes for youthful Marilyn. Marilyn Monroe resided in 12 different foster homes. Yet, it just so happened she had the option to avoid being trapped in the social administration framework. She turned homes between a portion of her relatives' Los Angeles vagrant homes and the home of her mom's dearest companion, Beauty Goddard, who turned into Marilyn's legitimate gatekeeper at that point, yet you will have a hard time believing how she needed to get by at 16. Marilyn had lived with the Goddards and her auntie Anna lower on and off for quite a long time, yet when she was 15, the Goddards needed to move to California, and her auntie was excessively old to deal with her 16-year-old Marilyn, who was still in secondary school. She had to get hitched to try not to be placed in guardianship by friendly administrations, and that was the means by which she got her most memorable marriage with 21-year-old James Dowdy. The Goddards' neighbor Marilyn and James had a few decent years together, yet when he was conveyed as a vendor marine in 1944, Marilyn had exited secondary school and was working at a protection plan for $20 every week, and this was the beginning of something else and breathtaking, not at all like anything more up to that point in Mary's life. While working at the plant, a photographic artist found her, and that ignited her excitement for the Hollywood spotlight. An 18-year-old setting out for Hollywood's prosperity isn't frequently anticipated to have a spouse. So in September 1946, Marilyn Monroe and James Dougherty were separated, yet achievement was certainly not a simple way. Marilyn Monroe was a delightful lady. There's no scrutinizing that, except for breaking into the business required much something other than a wonderful face, and Marilyn discovered that in a troublesome manner, while her photograph shoots had results that were dazzling, she really wanted more. In 1946, she got an agreement with 20th Century Fox. However, she was dropped the next year. Then she got one more agreement with Columbia. Yet again, after a year she was dropped. This unsteadiness in her acting profession is a pattern that would continue even at the pinnacle of her vocation, since she had a vice continue to watch to figure out what it was with the irregularity in her pay. And no distinction to help her up. Marilyn was battling to cover her bills. Consequently, chiefly, she settled on a gig that could represent the moment of truth in her vocation. And she didn't understand it until the result of the task spread far and wide and impelled her into one more degree of progress. So what was the gig? Well, in 1949, Marilyn Monroe consented to do a shoot with picture taker Tom Kelly. Doing a shoot could not have possibly been an issue since she began her profession as a model. Yet this shoot was different. It was a naked shoot, and her compensation was simply $50. A crazy setting, however little the installment from that shoot seemed to be. It turned into the enormous venturing stone to send off her acting vocation. Sadly, it was likewise the justification for why she was unable to keep away from a pigeonhole. Marilyn's photographs were exciting and engaged a huge piece of the business's top crew. As a matter of fact, Playboy's Hugh Hefner paid for one of the photographs so he could distribute it in the principal pinup of his magazine. However, it wasn't the bareness that got the job done for her turn into progress. It was the genuineness that accompanied it. Marilyn was not costing her world, and she transparently conceded that she did the go for cash, and obviously cash. Furthermore, achievement came her way. She was featured in probably the greatest films, and her photos were on every product under the sun, yet her concerns were a long way from being addressed. Recall the persistent vice that almost cost her profession. It was lateness, however capable and committed she seemed to be. Marilyn Monroe battled with anxiety in front of large audiences and uneasiness. And as a result, she was frequently late to creation plans for one broadly described episode. It took 28 takes for her to say one line before she at last hit the nail on the head. This fall in her amazing skill, as well as the way that she was generally given a role as the stupid blonde person, made it challenging for Marilyn's vocation to fan out any further than a specific specialty as she advanced in her vocation. Marilyn attempted to lay out committed relationships in her own life, yet it was anything but a smooth street after her most memorable marriage and separation with shipper Marine James Doughty, and her huge break into Hollywood. Marilyn's next relationship was with baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. In 1952, Marilyn hit it off with DiMaggio, and by 1954, they were hitched in San Francisco. Their marriage was charming for some time. DiMaggio was awkward with Marilyn's sex image status, which prompted some pressure. As per Elia Cousin, who Marilyn had an unsanctioned romance with DiMaggio, struck her and beat her multiple times. Rather obviously, the psychological and actual maltreatment put a burden on their marriage, and in September of 1954, around 9 months after they previously got hitched, the couple were separated. From the separation and pattern of occasions prompting, it was not the last time Marilyn Monroe would encounter disillusionment in a relationship. Marilyn's third marriage was with Pulitzer-winning dramatist Arthur Miller. The two met in 1951. While Marilyn was hitched to DiMaggio, however, they didn't follow up on their common fascination until 1955. DiMaggio and Monroe were separated, however. Mill Operator was hitched, and heading towards the separation on June 29, 1956, Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Mill Operator were hitched with her third spouse. Marilyn was genuinely involved, yet she tragically figured out that Arthur Mill Operator was frustrated and humiliated by her. After a tragic shoot of Mill Operator's 1961 screenplay, the Mavericks, who had a person that depended on Marilyn's character, got separated from her. Marilyn's marriage with Mill Operator was the longest and last marriage she had, but it didn't give her the youngster she generally needed. She had endometriosis and experienced 2 unsuccessful labors, as well as an ectopic pregnancy in the early, long stretches of their relationship. Amidst these troublesome connections and excruciating well-being challenges, Marilyn's life appeared to keep getting ugly. The entertainer would drink liquor unreasonably and was known to lean toward pain relievers. Her compulsion, along with her downturn and other psychological well-being issues, gave her a ton of close-to-home pressure as she was continually encountering mindset switches. Marilyn Monroe had the round trip of Hollywood distinction: the cash, the films, the acknowledgement, the habit, and obviously the issues as a sex image. In the mid-60s, Marilyn had been related to a few top superstars and lawmakers, and keeping in mind that she certainly didn't have a relationship or illicit relationship with each name she's been joined to, she had a couple of scandalous and high-profile issues while married to Arthur Mill Operator. She was said to have had an illicit relationship with her married co-star on We Should Have Intercourse, Yves Montand. She was additionally reputed to have had an illicit relationship with Tony Curtis, her co-star on Some Like It Hot Anyway. These failed to measure up to